If you're an organization trying to navigate cybersecurity compliance, especially, CMMC Level 2,
Hmm.
you know that feeling. You're looking at this list of 110 controls, and it's immense.
Hmm.
But the biggest challenge isn't really the controls themselves, is it? It's figuring out where. Where do you even apply them?
Exactly. That's the whole game. Scoping, it
Mhm.
is the single biggest factor that dictates the cost, the timeline, everything for your CMMC assessment.
Right.
And we see it all the time. Companies they overscope. They drag dozens of systems that don't need to be there into that full assessment zone.
So for this deep dive, we're going to give you the shortcut. We're digging into the official guidance on the 5 asset categories that really determine how intense that assessment is going to be.
Our mission here is to map these out.
Yeah.
What qualifies for each category, and more importantly, how you go from the full 110 controls all the way down to, well, to zero.
This map saves you time and, let's be honest, a lot of money.
And if you take just one thing away today, let it be this. The whole system, all of it, hinges on one simple question. What is an asset's relationship with CUI-controlled unclassified information?
Or its role in protecting it.
Or its role in protecting it?
Yeah.
That relationship, that is the line in the sand.
Okay, let's unpack that. We should start in what you're calling the critical zone, the part that carries the heaviest burden.
The full 110 CMMC Level 2 practices.
Yep.
We're talking categories 1 and 2.
So Category 1 seems pretty straightforward. CUI assets.
It's the most obvious one, yeah.
The definition is basically any system, device, component
Anything.
that processes, stores, or transmits CUI. If CUI lives there, it gets the full treatment.
And it covers a lot. Your file servers, obviously, user workstations accessing the data,
Yep.
your email systems, and this is a big one people forget,
Yep.
your backup systems.
Oh, of course. Disaster recovery.
Right. But let's get into a really high-value insight right away, specifically about the cloud.
You mentioned SharePoint sites as a prime example, but you were very specific. Microsoft 365 Government, or GCC High. Why is that distinction so critical?
Because if you're handling CUI, your standard commercial Microsoft 365, your Google Workspace, it's usually not going to cut it.
Okay.
The source material is really clear that cloud environments with CUI have to meet specific federal security requirements. And that almost always means moving to a government cloud like GCC High.
And if you just store CUI in your normal commercial tenant.
Then that entire tenant becomes a Category 1 asset. Everything. It's fully in scope. That distinction is. It's just key.
Wow. Okay, so that immediately clarifies the financial weight there, a wrong cloud choice, and suddenly your entire corporate environment gets the 110 control hammer. Now, Category 2, a little less intuitive, but you said it's just as critical.
Absolutely. Category 2 is for your security protection assets. We call them SPAs.
And these are the systems providing security functions, regardless of whether they actually touch CUI themselves.
Think of them as digital bodyguards.
So, a firewall. It isn't storing a CUI document,
Yep.
but it's protecting the boundary where that CUI flows. Or an MFA server. It controls who gets in.
Precisely. Firewalls, SIEM systems that are gathering all your security logs, your identity and access management tools, all of these are non-negotiable SPAs.
And the assessment for them is maximum rigor, fully assessed against all 110 practices that apply to what they do.
Yep. So categories 1 and 2, the CUI handlers and the CUI protectors. That's the foundation of your secure environment.
Now we get to the exciting part.
This is where you can find huge savings. We're moving into the policy-controlled zones.
We're leaving the black and white and entering the gray area.
Yep.
Assets that are in the CUI environment but are, supposedly blocked from accessing it.
This is Category 3, Contractor Risk Managed Assets, or CRMAs.
Okay, this is a high-stakes category.
It is. The definition is that these are assets that can but are explicitly not intended to handle CUI.
Because you have strong security policies and technical controls in place to block them. But that sounds great on paper. How does an auditor actually verify that? I mean, if my accounting computer is on the same network as the CUI server, what stops it from just being a Category 1 asset?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, right? The distinction is the enforced restriction. You have to document it, and then you have to demonstrate it.
So with technical controls.
Yes. Things like group policy objects, really stringent firewall rules, specific user permissions that actively prevent that asset from ever touching CUI. It's a policy claim backed by hard technical evidence.
I see. So examples could be a shared network printer, as long as it can't, buffer or hold on to CUI data.
Right. Or a shared file server that is absolutely technically guaranteed to never host CUI. This is also where BYOD bring your own device often lands.
Your personal laptop?
Exactly. If you use technical controls to restrict its access to CUI, it can be a CRMA. But
Yeah.
this is a key constraint from the source material.
What's that?
External service providers, ESPs, can never be CRMAs.
Why not? Why the exclusion?
Because the whole CRMA idea relies on you, the contractor, having
Yeah.
direct, full control. You have to be able to assert and enforce those restriction policies.
And with an external provider, you lose that direct control.
You got it. Their systems, if they're involved, get pushed into Category 1 or 2.
And here's the payoff. For CRMAs, you don't assess against all 110 controls.
Correct. It's a massive difference. They only need an SSPA, System Security Plan Review, plus some limited spot checks.
So you're not assessing the tech itself against every single control.
You're assessing the policy and the evidence that your policy works. That is a huge reduction in time and cost.
Okay, let's move to the fourth category. This one seems to acknowledge that, while not all equipment was built for a 21st century cyber audit.
Right, we're talking about specialized environments. Category 4 is for specialized assets, and again, no ESPs allowed here.
So these are assets that might handle CUI, but they have, what, operational or technical constraints?
Yeah, they need a special approach. You can't just run down the standard 110 controlled checklist with them.
The source material actually breaks this down into 5 types, and they're incredibly diverse.
They are. We can kind of group them into a few buckets, though. First, you have the physical world equipment.
Like OT, operational technology.
Exactly. Your industrial control systems, your SCADA systems running the manufacturing line, they have long life cycles. You can't just patch them like a Windows server.
And I guess IoT and industrial IoT would fall in there too. Networked cameras, sensors on the factory floor.
Yep. They're on the network, but their embedded nature really limits what controls you can apply.
Okay, what's the second bucket?
Government supplied and legacy assets. So this is government furnished equipment, GFE, where the DoD just gives you the server, you inherit its security.
And what about restricted information systems, RIS?
Think of fielded systems out in the world, or just obsolete platforms that are still running but can't support modern security.
And the final one was test equipment.
Right. Calibration tools, spectrum analyzers, stuff you use for the contract deliverables.
So even though all this equipment is vital, the assessment is streamlined.
It is. Just like CRMAs, these specialized assets only need an SSP review.
Yeah.
You document the constraints, you explain how you mitigate the risk in your plan, but you don't get hit with that full 110 control audit.
And that's key, isn't it? Documenting why you can't meet a control is way easier than proving you do meet it.
1,000 times easier.
All right, so we've covered the fully assessed zones and the policy managed zones. That brings us to the boundary, the zero assessment zone.
This is the happy place. Category 5. Out-of-scope assets. The definition is airtight.
An asset that cannot process, store, or transmit CUI.
And this is the important part.
And it does not provide security protections to any CUI assets.
If it meets both of those conditions, you're golden. Zero assessment requirements. No documentation needed.
So a marketing server that's completely separate from everything else.
Perfect example. Or personal phones not connected to the company network. Office furniture. The stuff that is physically and logically incapable of impacting CUI security.
Okay, before we wrap the categories, we have to talk about one of the most confusing parts of scoping, the supporting organizations.
Ah, yes. HR, legal, finance.
Do they get their own special category?
They don't. It's not a separate asset classification. Supporting organization is more of a scoping concept, whether they're in or out. It all comes back to CUI.
Walk us through that flip, because I think this is where a lot of companies get it wrong.
Okay, so if your HR and finance departments are totally separate, physically or logically, and they cannot process CUI, their systems are Category 5. Out of scope.
Your standard corporate payroll system, that's fine.
Right. But let's say your legal department gets a contract, and it's marked CUI, and they store it on their internal legal document server for a week.
Uh-oh.
Instant flip. That document management system just stored CUI. It immediately becomes a Category 1 CUI asset.
And it's fully in scope for the 110 practices.
Fully in scope. You can't hide CUI in an unimportant department and think the rules don't apply. It's the function of the asset, not the org chart, that decides.
That's the crucial distinction. And we should probably mention quickly, the sources get specific about CUI markings that trigger all this.
They do. CUI isn't one thing. Controlled technical information is CUI-SP-ECTI. Export controlled data, like ITAR, is CUI-SP-ESBT. You have to know those markings to even start.
And a quick definition for cloud service provider, A CSP.
It's just an external service provider, an ESP, that offers cloud computing based on the NIST SP 800-145 definition.
So what we've really mapped out here is a gradient, a structured way to manage risk and maybe more importantly, cost.
Absolutely. You move from that mandatory full assessment for your core CUI assets and their protectors,
Down to just a policy verification for those risk-managed and specialized assets?
all the way to zero assessment for things that are truly isolated.
Understanding the scoping mechanism is the real shortcut to compliance, isn't it? It proves you don't have to spend a fortune hardening every single laptop and printer in the building.
That's it. Effective scoping isolates the risk, it minimizes your assessed footprint, and it focuses your resources only where they're truly needed.
So for you listening and thinking about implementing this, remember that the success of that CRMA category, it relies entirely on that isolation being robust.
Both policy and technical isolation.
Exactly. So here's a thought to chew on. What are the practical daily challenges for your organization trying to maintain that perfect separation for, say, an employee's BYOD phone when that phone is on the same Wi-Fi network as your Category 1 CUI assets? That tension between trusting a written policy and enforcing the technical reality, that's the hidden hurdle in all of this.